Welcome to Business Talk with Meghan McNulty, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of business success and reveals the strategies, insights, and stories that drive these professionals to thrive in the ever-evolving world of business. Whether you're an established entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply fascinated by the world of commerce, this podcast is your front row seat to learn from the best. Each episode, Meghan will bring you engaging interviews with professionals from diverse industries who will share their triumphs, lessons learned, and the insights they've gained along the way. Hi, everyone. I have Bart Morse here today to talk to us about his business. He's an entrepreneur and leader in, the men's space, I guess, for lack of better words. I'll let him fill you in on that, but he's promoting leadership and a wonderful person and also a friend of mine. I'm going to let him kind of tell us a little bit about his business.
Thank you, Meghan. Honored to be here. Super grateful for our friendship and just think this will be a lot of fun. So yeah, the business that I run is called The Lion's Den, and this is a men's leadership network. So I have, a group of men that I essentially coach. We do monthly in-person meetings for executives, business owners, investors, some entertainers in there. And then I also run online group calls, and I do private coaching. And it's all about being a better leader, first and foremost, at home, or you could say at kind of a personal level, and then also being a better leader at work. And so we're starting to do more leadership training in the corporate world as well. But it really started with being a better leader at home.
I love that. So your name of your business is called The Lion's Den, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Can you tell us a lot about what inspired you to start The Lion's Den and how it differs from other coaching or let's call it leadership programs out there?
What inspired the origin of it was my own life and some of the struggles that I went through. So namely a separation and divorce. And I was married 15 years. To a wonderful marriage and family therapist. And therein lied sort of the aha moment for me. So I had access to a lot of the traditional sort of resources, be it counseling and therapy. We were also active members in a church, and I feel like I had good resources there. But when the marriage began to fail, I've realized that I really wasn't equipped for what I'll call that crisis. There was no training that I knew of that was specifically for men. And so thankfully, through a series of sort of serendipitous events, I got into 3 different programs that really changed my life. One was about masculine and feminine energy. Another was about discipline and what I'll call extreme ownership. And another one was about radical love. And through my own personal journey of trying to understand what I could have been doing differently to make my marriage successful, I realized I had never gotten training in this area. And this was really foundational stuff that redefined how I saw myself as a husband and really a man. And so I started sharing what I was learning with other men. And, I'd been a management technology consultant for years and years. I've worked with a ton of Fortune 100 companies. I've been close to a lot of high performing executives, and every man has, struggles when it comes to relationships. And so as I sort of discovered these new mindsets, frameworks, trainings, I realized, hey, this is a lot like consulting. A lot of what I was learning was really kind of stuff that I could draw out on the whiteboard. And I realized that there was this opportunity to share a lot of what I'll call, kind of these soft skills, these leadership skills that you would use very actively in a relationship, a romantic relationship like a marriage. But I could explain it to men in like kind of charts and graphs, like I would, if I was doing an engagement at the Irvine Company or, Microsoft. And so guys started to go, oh yeah, I could see that. that would make sense. And it just snowballed from there. I started shooting social media videos, and then I started getting clients, working with men, seeing success, and so rinse and repeat. And so I think, like, in essence, really what I realized was I didn't really have the skills, the leadership skills, to be successful at home. And if I could kind of define it, it's sort of principle driven leadership. So it's really defining what matters most to you, the things that you want, the things that you stand for. It's who you are, knowing who you are and what your vision is, and then sticking to those things. So I like to say, masculinity is deciding ahead of time how you're going to show up. It's not muscles, mustaches, machine guns. I mean, that is, masculinity at some level. But masculine energy is really deciding who you're going to be, how you're going to show up, and then sticking to that even when there's adversity.
Okay. You talk a lot about loving masculine leadership. So
Yeah.
what does that look like in practice, and what does that mean?
Yeah. So loving masculine leadership is part of a bigger framework that we have called the Behavior Quadrant. And essentially, if you draw a horizontal line in your mind, above it, you've got love and abundance and I'm enough. So this is a mindset, right? And this is where we want to be. We want to be in this place of like love and abundance and I'm enough. But below the line, you have the opposite of love. And that is, at least by my definition, fear. Fear is the opposite. A lot of people say hate, indifference, fear. Fear is really synonymous with like scarcity. I don't have enough, right? And when
Right.
we're below the line, in our mind at least, we get influenced by that belief that, I don't have enough, or I'm rejected, or life's unfair to me. I'm a loser. I'm a failure. I'm stupid. All of these kind of false beliefs that go through our heads, they start to inform our actions. Okay, so if you draw another line, you can draw a y-axis. Now you have a quadrant, and on your left, this would be feminine energy. Feminine energy is emotion-driven decision making. It's not good or bad, right?
Okay.
Until you layer love or fear into the mix, okay? Feminine energy is emotion-driven decision-making. Both men and
Okay.
women can possess it. And then masculine energy is principle-driven decision-making. It's, again, deciding ahead of time how I'm going to show up. So what I've developed in Lion's Den is this really easy way to see how I'm showing up, because these quadrants all map to behaviors. So I'll give you an example. The fearing feminine, for example, is getting defensive, shutting down, complaining, venting, avoiding, sweeping things, under the rug, reacting, kind of getting angry. These are all things that behaviors that when we're in our fear, we just kind of, boom, we react, like, or we just start kind of, taking cues from our emotions. This is the fearing feminine. This is where a lot of guys have no idea that they're actually coming across as sort of weak, in the relationship. And this is a turnoff. This is unpredictable to a woman. It feels unpredictable. It feels unsafe.
Yep.
So, so if you go over to the fearing masculine, commanding, demanding, controlling, throwing out ultimatums, stonewalling, and this is so the difference between shutting down and stonewalling, for example, is shutting down is I'm in a conversation, I just shut down in the moment, like I don't know what to say anymore because I feel misunderstood. Stonewalling is fearing masculine because I've decided ahead of time, I'm not gonna talk to this person. I'm not gonna respond.
Okay.
Right? So once you start to see these things, you realize, oh, maybe my wife feels really controlling. Well, you know why she might feel controlling is because she's dealing with a lot of unpredictability in your behavior. Your defensiveness, your reactivity really makes her feel unsafe. And so she's going to start being more controlling. Well, nobody really wants that, including her. So the question is, what do we want? If we're a man, we probably would prefer our wife to be in what we call the loving feminine. So that's
Okay.
creative, flirtatious, spontaneous, free-spirited. And I'm not saying all of the time, right? But I'm saying, isn't that nice? That's kind of where we want. And I'm also talking about in a romantic relationship. I'm not talking about this is how a woman should show up at work.
Right.
Okay. So if that's what we want in our partner, how do we get there? What power do we have as a man? We have to go into the loving masculine. And the loving masculine in our quadrant is being proactive, knowing who you are, what you stand for, um, what your plan is, having a plan, being proactive, staying calm, cool, and collected amidst adversity, um, listening, responding instead of reacting. It's all of these things that as men, we actually kind of know we want to be, but oftentimes get overridden by our emotions and throw that guy right out the window. So
Hmm.
the reason the program is because we need to set aside the time to do the work, to know who we are, what we stand for, where we're headed, determine our principles and what we want to live by, and then kind of practice some of these skills when emotions run hot so that we can actually execute in a calm, cool, and collected way. And when guys operate out of this loving masculine, they actually feel like their true self. When you're down below the line in your fear, trying to control or being defensive or complaining or what, that's not your true self. That's your false self showing up.
Makes sense. Okay. So many men work with or like, so a lot of men are successful in their careers. However, they are struggling with their marriages. Why do you think this disconnect happens? And how do you help like bridge that with some of
Mhm.
these
Yeah.
men?
Yeah, I would say that the skills that work for us at work often work against us at home. So we've been taught as men at work to really argue your point. A lot of times you get rewarded for that at work.
Mhm.
Um, Assertiveness, taking control, commanding. Now, we have to be, careful not to do, be careful to be kind. All of the things that we know we need to do to treat people well. But still, there's an element of hierarchy, and what I say goes, and depending on the role that you're in. When you come home and you try and implement a lot of those same behaviors, at home that you've been that have gotten you where you're at work, it doesn't go well, right? Because you're not actually leading in a way that feels safe.
Right.
It feels like my way or the highway. It feels
Okay.
like you're defending your point all the time. And I think one of the things that guys don't get is how eroding defensiveness is in a relationship. And over the course of time, if you're continuously defending yourself, you're continuously needing to feel understood, that that thing alone, that kind of need alone will erode so much trust. And what guys don't get is when the trust erodes, the woman starts to do things that, again, are not super desirable, but they don't see their responsibility in it. So
Hmm.
it's really about taking ownership over what have I brought into this relationship? And sometimes it takes guys a couple of weeks to realize, oh yeah, I have actually brought a lot of sort of fearing feminine, fearing masculine behaviors into this relationship. No wonder it's to the place that it is. And so I would say that guys need to understand being a leader at home looks a little bit different than being a leader at work, in that you've got to be able to just listen without getting defensive, without getting emotional. And when you can get to that place where you can actually hear your wife, your girlfriend express her emotions, hold space for it, ask her to tell you more, dig in, she's going to start to feel comfortable being around you. And that will have an ROI that a lot of men are missing out on because they just have never actually experienced what it's like to be that safe man to
Yeah.
her.
Okay. Um, I imagine women do similar things as well.
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah.
I want to be really clear. This is not a bash men program, right? We know that women are equally capable of showing up with unhealthy behaviors. But we also know that when we just try to change another person through, logic and ultimatums, or, all sorts of what would call fear-driven tactics, it just doesn't work. And so this is what I would say, if you're thinking about it as sort of a battle plan, it's kind of like sort of like a flank, right? It's like, I'm not attacking the problem head on. I'm going to do the work on myself. And that's true leadership. I'm gonna actually lead, get healthy first. And then I have more authority to speak into the situation because I've actually done the work to make changes on my end. And a lot of times things will just naturally kind of fall more into place because she feels safer to express her feminine energy, her loving feminine energy. So guys are kind of blown away that, it didn't take them arguing, getting her into couples counseling. It just took them owning their stuff first, and then things actually changed.
Um, can you I know you have certain frameworks that you establish or teach. Can you walk us through one you call the paid to
Yeah,
method or the behavior quadrant, which I know
yeah,
you
yeah,
mentioned the behavior quadrant a little bit here, but and how that works and helps
yeah.
people with their relationships?
Yeah, so paid to is one of the frameworks. I think it's the ingredients to having a healthy conversation. And paid to stands for pause, acknowledge, inquire, demonstrate, thank, and offer. So let me just go through those. So when we feel like we're getting attacked in a conversation, so often we just react. We quickly tell the other person, well, that's not true. Here's you know, here's my point of view. We desperately want to feel understood. We know we're right, those types of things. And obviously there's a lot of jokes around, when it comes to marriage and, do you want to, do you want to be right, or do you want to stay married, right? And so but the reality is, we as men don't have much of a playbook when it comes to these difficult conversations, which are what so often erodes the trust in the marriage. You have a bad conversation, I mean, that can lead to really uh, they can lead to divorce, and you have enough of those bad
Yeah.
conversations, right? So what we do is we give guys this paid to framework. First step is pause. Don't say anything. Just pause for like 3 seconds to gather yourself and decide to do it different. Don't react, don't scoff. The second step is acknowledge. So acknowledge
Okay.
means that I may not agree with what you just said, but I'm still going to acknowledge your feelings. So that might look like, um, I can see how you'd feel that way. I hear you. Hey, I'm listening. I can see that. And when you do that, that lets the other person know that you're actually engaged and willing to hear them. But it's not the same as, oh, yeah, 100%. If you do agree with them, like, hey, you were a jerk yesterday, and you were, I would tell guys, say, yeah, yeah, 100% I was. You're right. Totally. But so often we don't agree with what she's saying. And so how do you navigate that? Now, everything in us wants to just say, what are you talking about? Right? And then just like shut it down, move on.
Hmm.
That doesn't work. It does not work. We
Right.
know that. So you say, all right, I can see how you might feel that way. Inquire is the next step. So PAI is just asking a question. Say more about that. Share more. Help me understand what you mean. I'd love to hear what's behind that statement. These are all examples of open-ended questions,
Okay.
right? And that opens up your wife, or again, your girlfriend, to share their feelings. Now they're feeling safe. They're allowed to actually express what they're feeling. The next step, and arguably the most difficult, is to demonstrate. Demonstrate just means you're going to demonstrate that you heard what she said. So this is kind of synthesizing what you think is really going on, reflecting that back to her. So you would say something like if a common one would be like, you don't care about me. Okay, guys hear that. And they're just like,
Huh?
that's ridiculous. Like my whole life revolves around caring for you, right? So yeah, okay. Well, I want to hear that. Share more about what's behind that, right? Well, da 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 da. And so to demonstrate would be say something like, okay, sounds like I've been spending a lot of time at work and you feel kind of alone. That doesn't feel great. Is that what I'm hearing?
I could see that.
Right. And she might go, no, that's not what I'm saying. And I say, guys, expect that when you reflect back what you think you heard, it's going to be wrong. And so we kind of go around this wheel. Okay. So we go back, we pause. Okay. Listening, help me understand, or whatever uh, feels right in that situation. Share a little bit more because I'm not sure I'm getting it. Right? Allows them to express whatever's going on. Because a lot of times the other person, if they're emotionally charged, they just need to process it. They don't even really know what's going on until they just voice it. And sometimes when somebody
Hmm.
voices something, they realize, oh yeah, this is a little bit different when I say it out loud than how I was feeling. And so your role as a man, if you can get to this place, is a real honor. It's a real honor to actually lead your partner through a conversation and help them get to some measure of truth.
Mhm.
You know, okay, sounds like what I'm hearing is you're maybe feeling like you're doing something wrong, because I'm like not as interested in being around you because I'm busy with work. Is that fair to say? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. So then you'd move into thanking them, which is just an appreciation for what they're saying. Oh my gosh, had no idea that that's how you felt. Like so grateful that you shared that with me because that's really helpful and let me know that was going on. I don't want you to feel that way, right?
Yeah.
And so then you can move into the offer, and that's the last step. And the reason we have an offer is because that bridges into intimacy or something better. So, hey, can I give you a hug? Hey, can we go sit on the couch and have a glass of wine? Hey, can we go on a walk? Can I think about what you just said and come back tomorrow at 11 a.m. and we can have a conversation about it again for a half hour before we go out to lunch? Right. So you're bridging into intimacy in some form instead of just going your separate ways,
Right.
which is what we do so often during guys don't know what to do. It's, oh, this is a really crappy conversation. All right, well, yeah, I'm gonna go in this room and she goes in the other room. So that is the paid to framework, and it has changed a lot of relationships. Guys are blown away by. I had a guy, say, I did that with my wife, and the next day she came to me and said, I'm sorry that I've been such a pain in the butt for the last 3 years. And so when somebody feels heard, kind of miraculous things can happen.
Yeah. So you did talk a little bit about the behavior quadrant. Do you want to tell us about that one too?
I
More?
think I no, I think I think what I want to say on with a little bit of a follow up to what I just said is with the paid to framework, you have to let somebody feel heard before you come back and share your perspective. So just because you let somebody voice what they want to say and you don't agree with it, because let's face it, a lot of these conversations, there's not a bow that you just slap on them. They're
Right.
tough and there's more to be said. What I say is let her feel heard. And then you can come back in a part two. You can come back tomorrow with a point of view, but it's going to be in theory, much more likely to be received if you've taken the time to make
Yeah.
sure she feels heard. Right. And then I talk about being above the line or below the line. I mentioned
Okay.
that. So if you're going to engage in a conversation with her, try try and do it when you're above the line, in a place of like, I feel solid. I feel like I'm in my truth. I'm not feeling fear around anything. I mean, I don't feel like rejected right now. Like, you need to come into the conversation armed with this idea that she might say something that you don't agree with, and you're not going to just get emotional about it, right? Because
Right.
you're able to stand kind of in that truth. I always say, here's what because I'm not sure I'm articulating this great, but there's a great TED talk about not taking things personally, and it just goes like this: Hey, if I call you an orange, are you going to get offended?
No,
No. Why not?
I don't know.
You know you're not an orange.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, do I look orange? No.
Uh, Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's one way to take it, but you're not an orange. But if I call you an idiot or a loser, a lot of times we get offended by that, take it personally, because deep down inside, we kind of believe that. Sort of tell ourselves those narratives throughout the day when we do something wrong. Gosh, such a loser. Gosh, I'm an idiot. And that is the battle that we're in. And so when we get into these, relationships, a lot of those beliefs that are buried deep down inside, they kind of come up to the surface. And so I see marriage and relationship as a refinement process. You're going to be forced to deal with these lies, these false or limiting beliefs, because they're going to come up to the top through your relationship, through your conversations. So if you're going to have an important conversation with her, get to a place where you know you're in your truth, you're feeling above the line, and then go have it, because it's going to go a lot better.
Makes sense. I like that. What's one thing like a man listening today can do to maybe rebuild trust in his relationship or rebuild emotional connection with his partner?
A lot of times there's been a lot of hurt. You're sweeping things under the rug. So building trust is a multi-stage process depending on how much trust has eroded. If the relationship is in a what I would call like a crisis state, a lot of times space is created where we need to separate. So I'll give you an example. If that's the case, a lot of times guys, they want to just fix it. They want to talk about the relationship. Maybe they're going to turn up the romance. They're going to buy gifts. They're going to make romantic gestures, all those things. That's not going to build trust. That's going to come across as manipulation. That's skipping over the trust building work
Ah, okay.
and just pushing her further away,
Makes sense.
because the emotional connection has been broken. That bridge has been broken. And so building trust looks like taking extreme ownership, stopping blaming and shaming and reasoning, all this, and just taking stock of, okay, here's what I've brought into this relationship, regardless of what she's done,
Okay.
because she's done things too. So you take extreme ownership, you take stock of what you need to clean up, and you start cleaning it up. That's step one.
Okay. So for people curious about how would someone, if they want to be a part of your program or join your membership program or even like get one-on-one coaching, how do they contact you and what do those programs look like?
Sure. Website is lionsdenprogram.com. That's one way to get a hold of me. Obviously, they can reach out to you as well. You know where to
Yeah.
find me. And the programs are one-on-one coaching. So I do an 8-week one-on-one coaching program. It's sort of the antithesis of traditional counseling. So it's built a little bit more for men, in that I give you a clear kind of like timeline. Hey, we're going to work together for this length of time. There's about 10 times more touch points than counseling or therapy. So if you're struggling, you're really at a crisis moment in your relationship, like a separation, you want to have 24/7 support. Sometimes guys have conversations that feel, really unsettling, and they need to process it. They need to know what the next step is, and they can't wait a week. to talk about it with a therapist, right? The other
Right.
difference is it's coaching, it's not counseling. So I always joke, I say, I don't care how you feel. I'm going to tell you what to do, and then you're going to feel better. So this
Right.
is not like you sitting in a therapist chair for an hour and then me pitching in some advice at the end. Not to disparage like therapists, about a third of therapists out there are incredible. A third are
Yeah.
pretty good, a third are not. This is coaching in that if you're a man and you played sports as a kid, you know that a coach, they see the holes in your game and they say, make this adjustment. You do it, and then typically things go better. It's the same thing. It's like, I see what you're doing. I see there's certain things that you're not doing at all that you need to start doing. And there's just certain patterns, things that I see over and over and over again. And I can just quickly go, boom, you got to change this. Right. And if you do, things are going to get better typically. Now, sometimes, the trust is so far gone and eroded that it's too late. And I just want to be clear about that. But it's important to call that out. I've never had a man go, man, I'm so annoyed that I did all this work and became a better man and better leader, even if your
Right.
marriage didn't end up getting quote unquote saved. So the other two things really quick, you can also do a monthly in-person meeting that's a little bit more like kind of a cigar time with other business owners and executives. And then lastly, there's just online group calls as well. And then there's also actually now that I think about it, I'm launching just an AI driven coach as well. So nobody even has to know you're a part of it, and you can just get advice from my AI self. And there's a
Your
course.
personal AI. Oh, that's so
Yep.
interesting. Wait,
Yep.
what?
Yeah.
This is
Yes. I've
fascinating.
replicated myself. Yeah.
In an
So
AI domain. Okay. So they can just
yeah.
ask the questions, have conversations with the AI and your help. Are you responding or you've already programmed the AI to
No, I've
respond?
already programmed the AI. Yeah.
Wow, I like
Yeah.
this. That's
Yeah.
really interesting. I feel that this is so helpful because we kind of forget that half the marriages fail, right?
Mhm.
And we think that men are always so tough and, and they are, but there is a lot of stuff that goes on when people are dealing with these situations, like your story that you shared in the beginning. And it's nice to know that there's there's like tools to have a better experience or outcome and when stuff like this happens, like a divorce.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah. Sometimes the wife doesn't even have any, this isn't my preference, but there's been clients where the wife actually doesn't even know I exist and the marriage repairs.
yeah.
So I want to say that to a man who might feel like, oh, well, I need my wife's participation, but she doesn't, want to be involved. It doesn't matter.
Right.
We don't need her participation for this to work.
I want to ask you a question because lots of business owners listen to this podcast
Yeah.
and just from a business owner perspective yourself, how do you like being a business owner and an
I love
entrepreneur?
it.
And what's your advice for other women and men that might want to start their own company? Do you have any? I kind of put you on the spot here.
Oh,
Sorry.
that's fine. Yeah. I mean, I've got a lot of advice. I think to prioritize the things that are going to grow the business first. It's really easy to get caught up in everything else, operations or, the easier thing versus doing the
Right.
hard thing first. And so that's something that I've stayed disciplined on is lead gen is really, really, really important.
Right. And then on another side note, you have a great network that you've developed with this company. And I think that's something else to mention to people, especially men that are listening, but like men that, participate and are member. It's a membership, right?
Yeah.
For the men. Okay. Yeah. So they can join. And I think a lot of times everyone's so busy and we live in hectic schedules and we all
Hmm.
drive cars everywhere. And we're not necessarily like in communities or like town halls in our, you know, like the old days. So it's nice to have a good, strong network of like-minded, motivated individuals. So just want to point that
Yes.
out. I'm very
Yeah.
impressed with your network there. I think it's like important work. So it's so interesting to me. And I feel like we focus a lot on women a lot and not men. So when we talk about these things, so I was always fascinated to come by you when we first met. I was like, wow, this is super interesting work and important. So
Oh, thank you, Megan.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where can we find you on social media? Are you on social media,
Yeah.
TikTok?
I'm on TikTok, so it's just Bart Morse if you
Okay.
search that. And then my Instagram is the same, but my Instagram is kind of being rebuilt now.
Okay.
So you can find me on either one, but you'll find a lot of content more on TikTok. And then YouTube, same thing. So Bart Morse, that's being built up
Oh,
as
nice.
well. So I would say go to the website. You're going to get probably the best uh, sense of what it is and how to take the next step.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Anything else you want to share with us?
I would just say, I just want to encourage guys, if you feel like you're up against some of the uncertainties of relationship, just see what we have to say. So get engaged, reach out, because we've got so many. I mean, I want to say it's 75 different tools and frameworks and mindset, uh, mental models. And if you start applying these, you're going to realize that you have more, I'll call it, I think control is not the right word, but you can have more peace and feel uh, more true to yourself by implementing these things that I would say most guys say, like, I wish I would have been told this stuff 10, 15, 20 years ago. Right. So
Right.
so just know that if you're going through it in relationship, it's always going to be hard. There's no silver bullet, but there's another door. There's another world that exists out there to help you be successful.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. This was so interesting, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks for having me.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing to the Business Talk podcast and leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us grow and improve. Thank you for joining us today. This has been another episode of Business Talk with Meghan McNulty.